Hey everybody.
Sean and Kelly here, Price and Price Group of eXp Realty. And what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about, are we salespeople or are we fiduciaries?
Yeah.
Okay, this is really, really important.
It's really important because real estate agents are salespeople.
Yes.
But sales is a very small part of what we do.
What does that mean, right? I mean, you think of car salesmen and all that. We're going to explain how don't get that all mixed up.
We're going to dive deep into this.
Don't mix that up in your head.
Here we go. Okay, so let's dive into this. So before we get into the details of this and how this works, let's first describe what a fiduciary is.
Okay. Well, and that in the state of Virginia,
yes,
your real estate representative, your real estate agent has a fiduciary obligation to you.
Yes.
We have a fiduciary relationship obligation according to our contract. So now let's talk about what that is.
And we went through details last week on the fiduciary or the representation types. So, okay, so the definition of a fiduciary based on Google, of course, this is the official definition.
Yeah.
A fiduciary is someone who manages money or property for someone else. When you're named as a fiduciary, in that term, we're talking about the agent. When the agent is named a fiduciary and accepts the role, they must, the agent, by law, manage the person's money or property for the benefit of the client, not the benefit of the agent.
Right.
So it's kind of like if you wanted to take it and put it in a different profession, it's your doctor. You go into the doctor, you've got knee pain. You expect that doctor to give you advice based on the best protocol and the least invasive procedure. If they're a knee surgeon, you don't want them to just jump to surgery because they can. You want them to do the things that they can do, to cause the least damage.
That's right. And we know our medical professionals are bound by a certain code of ethics and laws, like they're legally bound to it. You also need to understand that your real estate agent is legally bound by a certain code of laws and ethics.
Yes.
And they're pretty in depth, and we have to maintain CEUs and licensing requirements that updates and drills it in every single year. Yeah. And actually for every state that we're licensed in. So we get a triple dose, baby.
Yes, we do. That's great. And the reason this is important is because we'll have buyers and sellers ask us questions, or they'll tell us stories about previous experiences and situations where they feel like they had been sold. So for example, a seller might feel like they're being sold when they meet with an agent and the agent is trying to convince them to list a property for a price that the seller feels is way too low, because they're like, you just want to sell it quickly and make your commission.
Yeah, we have heard people say that. Like they, when they complain about an agent, they do say that they just want their commission, so they wanted us to do that. And we've gone in depth on how to price homes and everything, and how it can be higher or lower than what you expect. So that is certainly one way. And let me add in here too. Yeah. If you don't have a contract with your realtor, whether you're buying or selling, until you have that contract, you're a customer.
Yes, that's a good point.
And that means something. You're not a client yet.
Yes.
You're a customer, and we don't have a fiduciary obligation to you.
We have a binding, we have to be honest.
I mean, ethically, if you're good people, we obviously are going to do all this stuff anyway. But there's no legal obligation.
That's right. That's right.
Once we have that contract and we have established this fiduciary relationship, you're now a client. Yeah. So that's, whenever you hear things, my attorney-client privilege, there's that. Yep. A customer, if you go onto a car lot and you want to buy a car, you're never a client.
If you go onto a builder's lot, you are a customer. You're not a client of the builder.
And
you're the customer.
That's a very significant nuance there. So yes, thank you for letting me have that little
absolutely. That was a good clarification.
Tangent.
High five. All right. So that's important. You may feel sold if there's a price. Now, some agents will sell you by going the opposite direction. They'll give you whatever you want. I can sell this house for $2.5 million, even though it's only worth 1.8. They'll buy the listing. So you do have to be careful of being sold in those situations, but that is not the role of a true agent that is representing you.
Right.
Another situation is we've heard clients that would complain about their previous realtor or realtor experience where they got an offer and the offer wasn't what the client wanted or perceived as being valuable, and they felt like they were pushed into trying to accept that offer. And they may have been, or they may not have done, but that's not what the role of a seller's agent is. It's to represent that seller. Buyers, how can buyers feel pressured?
Oh my gosh. Oftentimes we've heard people say about their other agents that I felt like every house they took me to, that was supposedly the perfect house for me, and I needed to bid on it, and or make an offer, and it had to be really high, and they just wanted me to buy it because they wanted their commission. So that's been something.
Yep.
I think we've also heard, I guess that's it. Like they wanted me to waive every contingency and bid as high as possible.
We hear a lot about that. And if you don't explain it properly, especially in a seller's market like this, where you have to get aggressive with your offers, you can come across like you're trying to just push that buyer just to try to get the commission. And you have to,
true.
Yeah. So that is something that has to be very clearly defined and explained in the process, which we're going to explain some today.
We will explain some. And there's a certain amount of finesse you need to use too, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't understand these relationships. So oftentimes, if it warrants it, right, because we're in it for our client's good, we'll kind of sit back and let our buyers experience the real market. Like, okay, we're telling you this, but hey, if you want to make this kind of offer, let's see. Just understand it's always, you always have the final say, always. And they quickly realize, oh wow, there is something to what they're saying.
Same thing
about
with
the
the seller in that situation. If we had a seller client that didn't want to take a certain offer, we would not push them. We would advise them, tell them what we think about it, but it's ultimately their decision. And they may reject that offer, and then a couple weeks later, they get a lower offer, and that's the only thing on the table, and they may lose some money. But it's always up to the client. It is never a sales position to try to push them in any direction.
Right.
So what is the difference? And we do have some notes here, so if you hear clicking, we want to make sure we don't miss anything because this is really important. So for a buyer, there are some fiduciary responsibilities, and this list is not all inclusive and what's that word? Exhaustive or?
You did a good job.
Okay, thanks. All right, so the first thing you need to do as a fiduciary for a client, whether buyer or seller, is you've got to sit down, you've got to determine that person's needs, because what's good for one buyer or one family may be not at all the same thing that's good for another one, or an investor might have different goals and so on.
Yeah, we might have a family, for example, whose kids are, this is the school zone. They've got all these children. Their timing is going to be significant, and location is going to be of the utmost importance. They may have at this point the funds to, okay, maybe you want to waive this or, do that, because the most important thing for them is getting the place and getting the size and the timing, right?
And the school zone or
for someone with no children, and that the timing isn't as important, but maybe it's their very first place. Maybe they're single and they don't have all the funds. So for them, it's really, really important that we focus on other things. So that's why determining the timeline, budget, motivation, it's so specific to the client.
And then we determine your needs and how we advise you based on those things. Because if you're in a situation, you're looking at a house, and this is the house in the school zone that you love, and let's say you have a cluster of buyers around that house, right? And they're all bidding on it, and the prices are going up, and you're determined not to be that one that steps up too high. And we're in a seller's market at the time of the shooting, so one person's going to come up here and get that house. Okay, that person's going to pay too much for that house because all the people are down here, right? That house now becomes the comp.
Right.
So the other 10 people that just missed out on that house, the next house that comes on is going to be priced a little above that. So now all of these 10 people are up here doing the same thing.
Yeah, and what it means by new comps, right, is that's how houses are priced. That's the expected price that everybody thinks that somebody's going to be willing to pay for it.
That's right.
That's when the price that the houses come on the market. So that's a comparison.
Yeah.
And he's exactly right. If it's going to bid up too high, no, that's just what the market's going to bear. It feels too high for you in the moment.
Yes.
But once it's sold, that wasn't too high. That was the new market price. That's the new comparable, the new comp.
Yep. So that crowd just keeps going up and up. And if we're advising a buyer in there, and that buyer doesn't have a choice to go to another location, we're going to have to advise that buyer, if you want this house, if you want to get into this school zone, if you want to do these certain things, and if you can, you got to make sure you can, and you can bear it, then you got to do what you got to do to win. But again, it's ultimately the buyer's decision, but that's a situation where that could happen. Sellers, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but it's the same thing. If you're in a buyer's market where prices are going down and you have a cluster of sellers and you're competing against them, one of those sellers is going to come down here and they're going to sell. That becomes a new comp, so then it's a chase to the bottom.
That's exactly right. And if you're a seller, say in the Langley Cooper pyramid, Fairfax, there are certain pyramids that we're not going to say, yeah, you should wait until fall. That's going to be fine. You could put your house on the market in the fall. No, we're gonna push you harder than we're gonna push someone in Alexandria in a condo. That you need to get your house on the market at least by spring. You know, maybe even kind of beat that.
Because those families need to move in by June, and you're gonna miss the buyers.
Yeah.
So it's market dependent.
And your agent, after determining the needs, like we were to circle back to that, we know where to push, and it's going to be based on what you need, what you've outlined. And if we say, okay, like it seems like you're not really in a hurry to do this, have your needs changed? Do we need to reassess the situation? And that's also, we need to be able to course correct and pivot and have that open communication.
And that is a great example, because sometimes a buyer will come into the market and they are only looking for a deal. They're not going to, we've had buyers that come in and they will not go above asking price. Even if the asking price is $10,000 below market value, they will not go above asking price.
I myself have to fight with that mindset. I'm like, I want to haggle.
So sometimes that is their mindset, and we have to be just completely honest with them that this is not the market. Or they have to start looking at properties that have been on the market for 60 days, which there aren't very many, which they're not happy with. So you just have to kind of play the market, and it's based on goals. And that's totally fine. If this is not the market for that buyer, that is totally fine.
And keep in mind, it's a no judgment zone. Right. I can remember back when we were little tiny babies and out trying to find our first place. I felt so bad, and I felt like I wasn't good enough. I'm like, we can afford, I think we were in Florida, we can afford $100,000. And I felt so dumb. And it's dumb to feel dumb about that. I mean, that is just not how it is. So never feel bad for exactly what you need. Your needs are your needs, and never feel bad if they change, or if you're like, oh, I kind of changed my mind. That's also not bad.
That's really good.
I do that a lot.
And if you're in a situation where the market doesn't bear what you're looking for, either leave the market, or you can change your mind and go to the market. But it's just
there's always a solution.
There's always a solution
that we can help you find if we're just open and we really do a good job of getting your needs assessed.
Another fiduciary responsibility that we have for a buyer is when we go into a house, our job is not to convince you to buy a house. You came to us because you have decided to buy a house. So when we walk into a house and a showing with a client, our job is twofold. Number one is to point out all of the potential of the house for what their goals are. You know, maybe we need to move a wall. Maybe the paint is, whatever can be done to make it meet their needs. But on the other side of it, it's also important to look at the systems, look at the roof, look at the windows, make sure they understand these capital expenses that may be coming up. Make sure they understand that there's we're not inspectors, but there are things that we can see when we walk in. We know the high ticket items to look for, and it's our job to share that with the clients. We're not trying to sell that house. We're helping you see if that is the house for you and fits your needs.
And hey, these are some really big positives you may be overlooking because the paint on the countertop or cabinets are ugly. Or, hey, I know you think this is amazing. Shut up. But you've got some big expensive things that might be coming along. And I like to think of it like, say you've said you're hungry. Great, let's go to a restaurant. Do you have any dietary restrictions, your waiter or waitress might ask? And you say, why, yes, as a matter of fact, I have celiac disease and I can't eat gluten at all. So just the fact that your gluten sensitive menu is more expensive, it typically is, and the requirements, even the individual items, and you say, oh, what do you recommend? And they're like, we recommend the filet mignon because it's all this. And to sit there and say, they're just trying to upsell me and give me the most expensive thing, that's not necessarily true. You've said you're hungry, right?
You've said
you're ready to eat. You've said these are your requirements. You're kind of steering us into, and then you've asked what's the best. Well, it's better than the burger, right? So that's how I like to analogize that situation.
Yes, that's right. Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I
so
had
that's
two good things.
You're
two good girl things.
Okay. So then when it comes time to writing the offer as a buyer's agent, we have to help you navigate the terms of the offer. And this goes into what we've been talking about, meeting your goals. Sometimes we have to get aggressive. Sometimes we might have some room for stuff, but we just have to, appropriately guide you on that. Now, there are some sales aspects when working with a buyer. And the primary thing is that buyer is the star.
Yes.
We are the agent of that buyer. Think about a sports star. Think about Dak Prescott or Patrick Mahomes
or an actor, right?
Or an actor, yeah.
That kind of star. Like I can think of a lot of those.
Yeah. So you think, and I can't think of it, but anyway, so you think of somebody who has an agent that's representing them and selling them to the marketplace.
They're not going to pass you the scripts that are not according to your goals. Like I want to be a super duper movie star and star in dramas and like really show my acting capabilities. They're not going to show you like what Family Matters or something,
or they're not going to take Patrick Mahomes and sell him as a linebacker.
He's
a quarterback.
If that's like, whatever.
But anyway, so we're going to take you as the buyer and the terms of your offer, and we have to sell you to the agent.
Yeah, we're selling you to someone.
Yes.
We're not selling you on something.
And we're selling them on you. We're not actually selling you to them. But anyway,
I mean, yeah, we're not into human trafficking or anything.
So we're going to sell you to sell your offer to.
We're going to get like red light or something for saying
people get canceled.
That would be so fun.
Yes.
I'd be like, somebody canceled me. I was relevant in some sort of weird way.
We got shadow banned. We only had 10 views instead of 50. Okay.
Shadow ban? We'll talk about
that later. So we have to present you in a beneficial way to the seller and to the seller's agent. And what ends up happening with that is there's a lot of...
What do we mean by that?
Like when you write your offer, we have to present it in a way of, hey, these are the benefits of this offer. We have no appraisal contingency, or we have 10,000 above ask, or whatever the...
One of the key things, guys, I have to point out that has like pushed our offers over and gotten us the contracts, I've learned, has been who your lender is. When we submit your offer, we're also submitting your pre-approval. And when I say so-and-so is the lender, if you have ever worked with them, that they've seen all the documents. Yep. They're going to close on time. This and that. And if you haven't worked with them, you're about to find out. Yep. And they're available. Call them, text them now. You can get them. That's a huge thing. And that's a part of us pitching you and selling you to your offer to someone else.
And the agents matter. The relationship with the agents, the communication between the agents. There's sales in that. There's a relationship and rapport and so on. So
if we're jerks, no one's going to want to work with us, right? Yeah. We're not jerks. We're never jerks. No. I mean, I'm kind of jerky to you sometimes. Yeah,
that's
you're so sweet about
really
how
jerky.
You it.
Okay, anyway, so there is some sales, but it's more about selling you to the market, not about us selling you on something. Okay, correct. So that's the buyer side of this. And then from a seller's perspective is making sure we don't miss anything there. Seller's perspective, so the seller's fiduciary, again, is sitting down, determining your needs. On the seller side, it's more about like establishing what are you willing to do in the house to get the house ready? What's more important to you, to sell it quickly for as much as you can get, or
is the time the most important? Like maybe you don't have the funds or the time to put a whole lot into it. You need to cut ties and you've got something that you need to move on.
Yeah, so you want to get as much as you can for the current condition, or do you want to try to get as much as the market will bear and put repairs into the house, update the house, do these things? So we determine what your needs are, and then we guide you through the process, and we advise you how to prepare the house for that based on what the market is doing. Sometimes the market won't bear improvements, and we'll tell you that. We also advise you on what the price should be. Now, the pricing...
There's a lot of strategery that goes into that, and we will have the conversation with you. Okay, here's what is going on in the market. Here are some tactics we can use to price your house. This tactic, you can expect this thing to happen and it to sell at this. This tactic, you can expect these things to happen and it to sell here.
Yes.
There are a lot of nuances that are really fun to know and to talk about and to strategize on that we're not going to give up here. and we're just not.
And those tactics are critical. And the thing that we're not going to do is come into your house if it's a $1.0 million, $1 million house, and you think it's worth 1.75 because you love how you have this artwork that was put on the wall that is hideous.
It was probably really pretty though. I probably liked it and you probably didn't,
which
is exactly what buyers are going to think.
So you walk in and you think it's worth 1.75 because it's so unique and because you raised your kids there and it's got all this emotional. Anyway, we're not going to walk in and say this is worth 1.75 just so we get your business and then put you on the market.
You do have agents who are willing to do that. Oh yeah, I totally agree. I think we should list it for that. And then you're going to not hire the other agents who are telling you different things because you think that just because the agent says they agree with you that they're actually going to get it. The market is going to pay what the market's going to pay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And it'll pay more for agents who work harder for blah, blah, blah.
We'll go into that. It's a whole another video.
Awesome.
But yeah, so the determining of the price is very important. That is a fiduciary responsibility. Some agents do see that as a sales position, an opportunity, but because they can sell you on what they think they can do, and then you'll get the listing. But we see it as a fiduciary.
Now, when they are, and they don't have that fiduciary obligation in the sales pitch, though. When they're trying to pitch you on listing with them, you're a customer, and sure, maybe they're trying to sell you on hiring them. Once the contract is signed, everything should be for everyone. If it wasn't already, it should be perfectly fiduciarized. That's not a word, I don't think.
It is now. So, okay. And then once you have the property on the market, then our fiduciary responsibility is to help you navigate the market. We're getting feedback. Do we need to make changes to the house, changes to the price? Once the offers start coming in, what do those offers mean? What do we recommend with regards to that? Again, all of these decisions, all of this guidance, we are simply guides. Your job is to make the final decision. You always have the final call.
Right.
Now, as a sales rep for a seller, do you have something to add?
Well, are you getting into it? You might be about to get into it, where with the buyers, we talked about we're selling your offer to something. With sellers, you're not the star so much, but your house is the star.
Your house is the product.
And you better believe we're going to be selling.
That's right.
Like, as the seller's agent, yes.
We're selling.
We're selling.
Yes. Yeah. Because we're selling your house to the market. We're selling it to the buyer's agents. We're selling it to the buyers. We're selling it to
all
the
those people,
off-market.
they are not our clients. We don't have a fiduciary responsibility.
That's right.
I mean, we still deal fairly and ethically and all this. But we're peddling this ware that is your house, and we're selling this. This is why our sales background comes in with our product business.
That's right. But so this is where sales come in. Just like on the buyer side, you're selling the buyer
their offer.
Here we are selling the house. We're selling the product to the market. So there's sales, there's marketing, there's negotiation, there's language on how to state the benefits of the house. There's ways that you use the photography strategically to get people to the house. There's never shadiness.
There's never trickery. There's never undermining other agents where we're concerned. But there's never any of that.
Yeah. It's just presenting that house in the best light and letting people know why they should buy it.
And always reporting back to you legally, ethically, strategically.
So she's hitting.
What are you laughing at?
She's hitting these things really hard because there are conversations that clients, buy side or sell side, want us to have with them about things that we can't speak about. Things like fair housing issues, discriminatory issues. There are things that have to be done. We also have to deal with the public with ethics in mind. We cannot lie. We cannot deceive. We cannot hide material defects. So
I mean, you kind of make it sound like we're not allowed. We would if we could.
We wouldn't, because there's no ethics to that. You walk into a car dealership, they don't necessarily have a fiduciary responsibility to tell you that that engine, they just locked on the lug nuts and they're about to fall off when you get 5 miles down the road.
And I'm not shitting on car salesmen, right?
No.
I love car salesmen a lot of times, but I don't like going and being sold.
Yeah.
I would probably, I would do the same thing they're doing if I were a car salesman. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know.
So there's a huge ethical line.
Regret.
So there's a huge ethical line that has to be maintained here. But as a seller's agent for a selling house, we are selling that house. Okay.
Did we get stupid on all that?
I think we just went a little bit off of what we were talking about, but I think we're good. So anyway, so that is the thing to understand, that when you're communicating with your agent, if you feel like you're being sold something, we've had clients that when we were talking to them about writing an offer, they'll ask us point blank, because we have a relationship where we feel like honesty is important, and they'll ask us, why are you pushing so hard? We'll have the conversation. We explain to them what we're doing. And then they understand, and they're like, okay, so it's not that you're trying to sell me on this house, you're trying to help me achieve my goals, and that's exactly it. So,
do we have time for me to just circle back to the buyer and assessing the needs and all that, just for
1 minute?
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's circle back to all that. The assessing the needs of the buyers, and let's say you've outlined you definitely need a 2-car garage, you definitely have to be in a certain county or area, and you definitely need 3 bedrooms, and you don't want anything bigger than a 1/4 acre. right? These are very, very, very important things to you. Those are your non-negotiables. And so we're taking you and we're showing you all of these, and you say, oh no, I really need a 3-car garage. Okay, great. Are you sure? You definitely need a 3-car garage. Yes, I'm absolutely sure I need a 3-car garage. Okay, great. So then your search has changed. We're not showing you houses with a 2-car garage anymore. And then if you come back and you say, oh, I want to look at this one, and we say, oh, darn it, it has a 2-car garage. Well, I'd be open to 2-car garages. It's like we can't work effectively for you and meet your goals without really knowing what's really, really important. So that's just, I really want to stress that what's necessary and what's desired is very important.
Yep. Okay. All right. If you have any questions.
It was under a minute. I was looking at the clock.
You did good. If you have any questions, let us know. And
was that a dead horse beating I just gave?
I don't think so. Okay. I think we're good.
Good.
All right.
Horses,
all right. We'll see you next week.
Or
so
they're still dead.
I think next week we're going to talk about commissions. So make sure you stay tuned. Yes.
That's that big elephant in everybody's room.
That's right. That's right.
Get back in there, elephant.
Okay, so here we are with this week's market report. What's happened in the last 7 days in under 5 minutes. We're going to aim for under 3 minutes.
We have to
today.
be under 3 minutes. We're about to meet with Tatiana.
All right, so here we go. Okay, so buyer activity is, we're going to get straight to the graphs. Buyer activity is the orange line, and you can see that buyer activity is on a trajectory upwards as we go into the spring market. It's only going to continue in that direction. Inventory is still on a trajectory upwards, but it's not as steep. So we still have a huge gap leading us into a seller's market. So you can see the strength of the seller's market is doing nothing but increasing.
I know, it's going to get
crazy.
Stronger and stronger, yeah.
Interest rates did go up a little bit this week, but we didn't see buyer activity slowing down. We're still seeing massive competition for properties. So the thing is, if you're a buyer, you might be thinking, okay, it's okay, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to wait for the summer. This is only going to
by now?
Yeah, this is only going to keep on going up. It's going to get worse. The competition's going to get worse. Sellers, you might be thinking, I'm going to wait for the summer to get on the market. And
you don't. You can always get a PSO. You can which is a rent back. If you just think in your mind, well, I can't do it because I can't move until then. That's okay. There are ways to deal with that. So don't let that be the issue.
We have clients that need to wait and stay until June that are going to be coming on the market here in the next few weeks, because it's the time to get in the market is now, because inventory is low, demand is high. It's a perfect time.
Yeah.
So we're beating a dead horse here. This is what we've been saying for the last couple of weeks, but it's only getting stronger and stronger, and it's honestly going to continue to get stronger. So.
So get in touch and let us at least answer whatever questions you have. If you're not, if you're wanting to buy or sell and you're not pulling the trigger yet, you obviously have questions. So ask.
That's great.
It's not like we're secret keepers.
Good point. Okay. All right. Let's get to Tatiana.
Hey everybody, it is time for our Mortgage Minute with our very favorite lender, Tatiana, I believe, Lopez.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like the rates went up a little bit this week. Yeah.
They did. You're not wrong. You're right.
It's all your fault.
They did go up, and they are at 7.2% on 30-year fixed conventional loan. As always, government programs have lower rates, so FHA added 6.68, VA probably around the same, because they typically go on the same level. So the Lawrence Yun, the chief economist for National Association of Realtors, made a comment saying that mortgage rates will be bouncy week to week, but we will most likely settle down towards 6% by the end of the year. So we'll see what happens, but as of right now, the rates are on a rise. And again, as a reminder, the rates change every day, and you can lock the interest rate in once you're under contract. However, with us, with Prosperity, we can lock the rate if we do the PUFA, which is what did it say?
The pre-offer full approval.
Yes.
Yes.
So we send a file for full approval while you're looking for properties, and it will give us option of locking the interest rate in, not indefinitely, of course, up to 60 days for free, but we can do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
the lock and shop. I love that. And I have to, this reminds me, last night I had a nightmare that I actually woke up from, that we're not even house shopping, but I had a dream that we found this house and we got under contract, and it was all like within 2 days. And Tatiana, of course, we were working with you. And the next day you called me, you said, "Oh my gosh, unfortunately, you never told me to lock your rate and they've gone up and now you can't get your house." And I was devastated. And I thought, this actually can happen to people. So this lock and shop that you guys do is so, so, so important in the market the way it is.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's, I mean, because if you had locked it a week and a half ago, the rates were almost, what, 0.5% lower? I mean, it was maybe not that dramatic, but it was closer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And if someone is at the top of their budget, that could actually disqualify them
Yep.
from the, the price point that they're interested in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for anyone who worries that, okay, so I'm going to get the POPA, pre-offer full approval, so that you can lock my rate and then I shop. Well, what if the rates do go down? What are their options?
So typically, when you lock the rate, you protect it from any fluctuations from up or down. So when we've locked the rate, we lock the rate. If it drops, unfortunately, you still locked in.
Okay.
For the rate you got locked in.
Okay. That's really good to keep in mind, but shouldn't be prohibitive in the market, like you said, with it kind of going crazy and everything.
Okay, so I was questioning if I should ask this question. Okay, so I'm gonna throw a theoretical out here. We've locked a rate at 7.2 with you, right? Interest rate goes up to 7.7. We're smiling, we're happy, we're just joyful. Interest rate goes down to 6.75. That is not as good a news, right? So wouldn't, in that situation, a buyer theoretically just cancel that loan agreement with you and start a new one and then come in? Is it like, you see what I'm saying? Like there's because they're not obligated to stick with one lender in a situation. So if the rates went down, wouldn't they have options to be able to back away from that and be able to come back in at the lower rate?
Yeah, so what we would do, if they start shopping around, show me the estimate from another lender and I see what I can do to best match it. And I can't just from a get-go give the lowest possible, because I don't have authority to do that. We would need to take it to the management, and also we need to see the other estimate. And it actually makes a great point. Somebody can give a better rate, but what fees are associated with that rate? It could be that they're paying discount points, and I believe we spoke about discount points in previous videos, but there might be some fees associated, maybe not discount points, but some companies charge higher origination fees that are, doesn't matter what you call it, it's a fee, right? And it's a high fee. So we need to see the estimate to compare apples to apples and see what we can do.
Yep. So that's that you went right where I was thinking that you would, because we've seen you work miracles with clients. And I didn't want this to come across to somebody that if they locked it and the rates dropped, they had to leave you as a lender. I wanted that to be very clear that there were still options there. So
that's right.
Thank you for explaining that.
That loan estimate, getting any loan estimates if you're shopping around, that's so important. It's not the same as that pre-approval paper or email they get. It's the official loan estimate. That is the key thing to send, so that they can really go to their back office and get a seat at that table, I think is how I put it the last time, to try to really fight for meeting it or beating it, or at least educating you. And maybe it's met or beat already based on discount points that they weren't understanding, because it's not a very easy to understand document.
Absolutely. And the estimates, especially when they're given in just the very beginning, it's not uniform format. So every lender has their own breakdown, like the format of the breakdown. So it's not easy to understand. And people typically look at the bottom line. So they look at the interest rate and what the cash to close is.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be doing that, because the estimate includes third-party fees like title company fees and taxes and what have you. But what's important for when you shop, what you need to look at the rate and lender fees. That's all you need to look at, because you're gonna go with Bank of America or you're gonna go with Prosperity Home Mortgage, the title fees are gonna be the same.
Yeah.
The lender fees are gonna be different, and that could affect the bottom line. And some lenders, they like to underestimate fees, especially in the very beginning, just because they know that average buyer, they look only at the bottom line. So they'll say, oh, it's $5,000 less than Tatiana said. I like to overestimate, because I know when you go to settlement, and if I underestimate it, you have to bring extra $3,000. You're not gonna be happy. I would rather overestimate, so you bring less money than you expected.
Yeah. That's a good. That's a good. Right. Yep.
Yeah, very, very important.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we got that. Okay.
Anything else on rates before we move on to our hot topic and burning
our
question?
actual subject.
No, I think that's it. Just today rates are a little bit better, just like that economist said that they're gonna be it's everyday rates change. So looks like we're gonna get a little bit better rate today, but in overall right now the trend is upward.
Okay. Got it.
All right. Thanks for bearing bad news.
I know. Remember, right around Christmas, I think there was a hat or something you had. One was like going to be a good news hat, and one was a bad news
Scrooge
hat.
like,
Nope.
Yeah, I had nice. I guess I need to put the naughty.
Yes, you need to keep those in your
the naughty hat.
desk. All right. Okay. So, got some questions for you about HELOCs. Want to dive into HELOCs a little bit, see what they're used for, how they work, how you get them. Just give us all the information.
Okay.
Yeah, and how they're different. So the HELOC is the home equity line of credit. How is that different from a home equity loan?
Yep.
Right. So all kinds of questions, and
let's dive into that. So HELOC, home equity line of credit, that's what it stands for. So it is a supplemental mortgage typically that people get when they have an equity in the house and they want to tap into the equity without selling the house, right? So typically HELOC goes behind the first mortgage, or it could be a standalone if there is no mortgage on the property at all. Here's an example. So let's say you own a home for a value $1 million, and you have a first mortgage on it, $500,000. So you have $500,000 equity in the property, and you want to get some money out without selling the home, right? So you get that second mortgage. Let's say you get $300,000, and so total between first and second, the balance is now $800,000. So that's 80% of the value. Why I'm actually, showing you the percentage is because typically you cannot draw the whole 100% for equity out of the house. So depends on the lender, and every lender is different. They have different guidelines. A lot of them are capped at 80%. So they want to make sure that you're not completely draining all the equity. And if something happens and you cannot make the payment, you can sell the house and still make the profit, or instead of going belly up, right? So some can go to 90%, and some even can do 100. So it all depends on the company. So the credit line, it's a draw. Think of credit card, but this credit card is actually secured by the property. Regular credit cards are unsecured. This one is, the credit line is secured. So when you get this 300,000 line of credit, you might have zero balance on it, just like on a credit card. You have a limit of 300,000, but you can have a zero balance. You have zero balance, you have zero payment. Once you need the money, you can write yourself a check. They don't give a credit card for this one, right? So it's a checkbook. So you write yourself a check, or whoever maybe you hired, you doing renovation, and you have a company that you pay into in some, in draws. So you write them a check. They just, deposit the check. Now you have a balance on your credit line, and now you have accruing the interest, and you start making payments.
Okay.
So the payments are interest only for X period of time. Again, it depends on the program, depends on the bank. It could be 10-year interest only option, and then after that, they want you to pay it off in 30 years in total. So let's say 10 years interest only period, and after that, they're going to convert it into home equity loan, which I'll talk in a second, amortized over 20 years, for example, or you can refinance at any point. So when you wrote a check to someone, $50,000, then you can pay interest only, or you can actually pay extra, so you can pay down to 20,000 or whatever, or to zero, and then you have that available credit open up for you again, and you can write the check. So like a credit card, basically.
Okay.
The interest rate is variable, and it attaches to prime. So when you hear the Fed increase the rates, now they stopped and they're thinking to start bringing it down. So that's the prime, that's the rate that Federal Reserve is controlling, and the HELOCs rate attached to that. So bank will tell you your rate is whatever percentage, 1% plus prime. Prime right now is at 8.5 or 8.25, something like that. I think it's 8.5.
Yeah.
So they can say your rate is 1 plus prime, so it's 9.5. Or in some cases, it could be actually minus half or minus whatever plus prime. So that's how you calculate what your rate is. And when Fed decides, okay, it's time to start lowering the rates, the prime, they'll lower it to 8, let's say. So now your rate is not 9.5, it's 8.5.
Okay.
Right, or 8, whatever how they lower it. I mean, if it was 8.5 and your rate is 1 plus prime, it was 9.5, and now the prime is 8, so your rate is 9, right?
Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
that's the math.
Yeah,
That's how
we actually have a HELOC, and ours is 1% plus WSJ prime, and it recalculates every quarter. So whatever it was at this date, it would stay that for 3 months, and then they would look at that again, add the percent, and it would be like that for 3 months.
Okay, so that's something different. A typical HELOC is just the attached to prime, and it changes whenever prime changes.
Okay,
okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. So there are so many different variations.
Yeah.
All of
Yeah,
that.
and you need to look into it and read, and also important question to ask the bank, is there prepayment penalty? Because they might not allow you to not pay down, but maybe you paid it off and you decided to close it out within a certain period of time. They might there might be a penalty for that. And typically when people pay it off and close it out would be in situation, not like example I gave when you already own a home, but maybe you break the loan in two when you buy a house. So let's say a situation when it's you're buying a house and you have a house that you're gonna sell, right? But not yet. So you want to buy another house and you want to have two mortgages because you know you're gonna net 300,000 on the house you will sell, but you don't really have 300,000 to put down right now. You have maybe 5% to put down, right? So you're gonna do 20% first mortgage or whatever the amount, right? So to avoid the mortgage insurance, for example,
Right.
you're gonna get 80% first mortgage and plus the second mortgage for the amount of net proceeds that you know you get, and you just throw it into the principal on that on the HELOC, and then you close it out.
Yeah.
Or you expecting money coming in, inheritance, or you know that tomorrow you're gonna win the lottery.
Yeah.
And you're gonna do that. So that's the example of why someone would pay it off and close it out. But you know, I recommend keeping it open. Like I said, the zero balance means zero interest. Why don't you keep it open? And even if its rate is 9.5, it's much less than on the credit card. What is the rate on credit card? 20% in the best case scenario. So if you need to tap into your credit for whatever reason, maybe your AC died and you need 10 grand, you can just use the line of credit for that.
Yeah, I like that.
I like HELOCs.
And they're good for like if you wanted to use some of the equity maybe for a down payment on an investment property that you could pay off. You know, there are different ways to use it so you can start leveraging yourself to get in different investment opportunities as long as the numbers work. Don't go in debt and bust.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
But,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
So, and like Kelly, you mentioned about a home equity loan. That's another option as well. And some people that are maybe more conservative, they would like this option. So it also goes behind the first or can be standalone. The difference between HELOC and HELON is on the loan you cannot draw and pay back and draw again, right? So if you get in $300,000 HELON, that's you getting it right away and you starting paying the interest on it right away.
Okay.
And once you pay it down, you cannot draw again.
Okay.
It's kind of like now I would say if HELOC is like a credit card, HELON is like a car loan, let's say, right? So, but again, it's secured by the property.
Okay.
And it has a principal and interest payment. It's not an interest only. And it has a fixed rate. So whatever rate you get, that's what it is, and it does not change.
Okay.
So that's
I have a question. I have a question. I think about, well, I guess it would apply to either a HELOC or a HELON. And it would be, how do you guys, let's say the homeowner had their house for 10 years. And so their equity is very different now than it would have been 10 years ago. Not only because of whatever they paid down, but also because of the prices, you know, the value's increasing. How do you guys determine the new value to know how much they can get in a HELOC or a HELON?
Well, appraisal. They would order appraisal and see what it's you know what the value is now, and base it on the new
And so
value.
it's appraisal minus existing debt on the property would be the
yeah. So let's say they did appraisal like on that first example. Let me go back to it. Let me see, where was it? Like here, for example, right? So we have appraisal came in at $1 million, and we know that we can draw the maximum loan to value, combined loan to value can be only 80%. And we know that the first mortgage is 500,000, so we know that we can get only 300,000.
Okay.
Is this a desktop appraisal or is it a live in-person actual inspection appraisal?
I would say that it's a live, like real appraisal, but again, that could vary from bank to bank.
Okay.
They might also do a desktop. Maybe they will run it through the system, and when they analyze the file and they analyze the property address, they could tell you, we think the computer thinks that value is X, so because of that you can get this much money on HELOC. And if that's not enough for a client, they want more money, and they say, no, let's do a normal appraisal because I think my house worth more than that, so
Right.
they can get more money.
Okay.
And
And then does the borrower pay for that appraisal, whether they end up moving forward or not?
again, it depends on the lender. Some they would charge. When I got my HELOC, it was free. Appraisal was free, but it was an actual appraisal. A person came to my house and inspected. Yeah, it
Very good.
depends.
I love HELOCs. I think they are so, and I think this is points to another really great positive of home ownership versus renting. It just opens up so many more options, you know, like you said, Tatiana, a credit card can be 15 to shoot almost, I think my Amazon Prime is 29.99% right now. So it can be so high, but if you are a homeowner and you can tap into this kind of equity in your home and use the money for the same sort of purposes at an insanely lower interest rate, why not? So I love it.
And the closing cost is lower on HELOCs than on regular loans.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So just to be clear, the 10-year time frame that you laid out, you said they like to have it paid off in 30 years. After 10 years, it might conform or convert to a HE loan. That 10 years is from the date of the origination of the line of credit. It's not from the date of the balance increasing. So if it was year seven before we put, let's say, $10,000 on our HELOC, it would still be 3 years from that point that it might convert versus 10 years from the date that you made that charge. You see what I'm saying?
No, yeah, that's from the moment you open up the HELOC. Yes, and in some loans, HE loans, by the way, you know, they could be less than 30 years. They could be 15 or 20.
Right.
They have different terms
Yeah.
for that. And once you want to you need to convert from interest only to fixed. You also have options for how many years. They just don't want to drag over 30 years. So I would say 20 is going to be the longest for the fixed portion.
Okay.
But you can choose shorter term.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Good. I love it.
All right.
Very good. I love this topic. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
No.
No? Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate this. This was very helpful. I think that we should do at some point, we should do a video on ways to avoid PMI without putting 20% down. So I think this might be a strategy somebody could use.
Right.
But that's a whole other topic for a whole other day.
Well, and in our HELOC was when we first bought our house, and our original loan, it was kept at the conforming loan limit. And then our HELOC was beyond that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so that was
Different strategies. Like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, my HELOC, I got it because I wanted to do a renovation in the house and I didn't want to deplete my assets. So I got the HELOC, and I actually got HE loan. I got HE loan for 15 years.
Okay.
And it was, I'm gonna brag a little bit. It was a couple of years ago before the rates went up. So my rate on my HE loan, 15-year HE loan, is 2.5%.
Oh, I love it.
Gosh, that's like free money.
It's free money, you know. Like, why would I use my, cash? What if I need it for something else when I can just get a
and your cash, I mean, you can have that in a savings account making what, 4.5%, 5% right now. And your loan, you're only paying 2.5% on. I think that's great.
And I love HELOCs for the perspective of the potential of buying like an investment property. A lot of people want to get into investing, but they don't have the cash saved up. Well, they can use the equity that's built up in their house over the last couple of years, take a HELOC out, put the down payment on the property, and then potentially use that to start building their rental portfolio. And it's
Yeah,
It's just there's strategies that you can use for this that can really pay off.
yeah. So talk
It
to
is
your
a very popular strategy for my clients that are investors. They just take HELOCs, and that's acceptable source of funds
Yeah.
for that's important part. You know, when you get
Yes.
in another mortgage and you put in money down, we look at where the money coming from, and
Yeah.
HELOCs are acceptable.
They are, okay, that's
Yep.
a really good point.
Yeah, because you can take it, okay, a little bit. Sorry, I'm spinning here, but you could take a HELOC, buy an investment property, hold that investment property for 2 or 3 years, then take a HELOC on that investment property, use that HELOC to buy your next investment, and you could have this leapfrogging effect of taking your initial investment and spreading that over multiple properties. So anyway, that's
True.
Love it. All right,
All right.
Jenna, how does everybody get in touch with you?
They can call me at 571-245-3000.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week.
Thank
Thank
you. See you